Hey, what's going on? It is Manus coming at you on a beautiful day, 51 degrees. It is like summer here, even though the snow is still all around, but it is warm enough to be in a t-shirt and shorts and actually feel comfortable. Um, I haven't shot a video in quite some time, but I wanted to put a little something out. This is a little hat tip to some people that helped influence my fitness journey, and it's also a little, maybe a little bit of a tidbit of knowledge for you, the watcher today. If you're, I don't know, maybe just looking for something new, or want to learn something new when it comes to fitness, because I'll be sharing with you some unique resources. Let's put it that way. That you may or may not have heard of before and you may want to check out. So without further ado, this video is about, as quickly as I can do this, is my fitness journey and those that influenced me along the way, in no particular order other than the order of my life. The first person that influenced me and got me into a gym setting was a guy in my first two college years. His name was Eric Brazos. Eric became a really good friend of mine. He was a high school football player who later on went on to play for a local college here. Me and him became fast friends, and despite me not wanting to work out in a gym, as I never really lifted weights, I was a skateboarder first and foremost, rollerblader, avid hockey player. I love to run, I love to climb stuff, but I never really bothered to ever lift weights. Didn't really go into the weight room at gym in high school. I think I could probably count on 5 fingers how many times I went to the weight room to curl some weights or something like that, or play on the dip station. But anywho, again, never worked out. But at the end of my first year of college, Eric had got me interested in working out, and that became a staple throughout my first 2 years of college. And then graduating for that 2-year program, still working out, I ended up running into Uncle Lou. And Uncle Lou ended up getting me a free membership to the Y for years. And we would work out together. He'd get off his shift, midnight shift on the railroad, meet me down there. And Uncle Lou was a beast. Yeah, he was a beast, man. He was, played all kind of sports in high school, lettered in like a ton of sports, worked out like a beast. I think at one point, I could be wrong, that he may have competed in bodybuilding because he was just shredded. And to this day, he is still working out. He's down the road from me, and every day he works out. And he's in his 70s now, and just still after the weights, man. Just it gets ingrained in you, right? Your fitness, whatever mode of fitness you do, it just gets ingrained in you. But during that time, everything was conventional weight training. Your squats, deadlift, the machines, leg presses, hamstring curls, seated shoulder press, overhead press, push press, pull-ups, chin-ups, preacher curls, all the kind of what I call meathead. And I'm not being disrespectful when I say it. I'm not. It's just, I call that your meathead workout. Those are your based workouts for size and strength. That's really what they are, and they're great for that. During those early years of weightlifting, I got into also another influence was Vince Giranda. Vince Giranda was a bodybuilder, back in the, I don't know, somewhere between 40s and 60s. I don't know, something like that. Maybe it was before that. But he was a bodybuilder, and his program 8x8 was something that I adopted, and that was really cool because up until X point, I had Lou as an influence in what I had just would see at the gym. I did, and then of course it was, 3 sets of 12 or, 3 sets of 10 and, this and that, just your meathead kind of workouts for building a base, building a good base. But I started to branch out, started going down those rabbit holes and looking at other things that could be done. So again, I was, Vince Giranda, his 8x8 kind of captivated me. Another gentleman that did even more so was Charles Pouliquin, who developed German volume training. That was specifically, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was specifically designed for your bodybuilders and strength builders on their kind of off season, so to speak, when they weren't either competing. It was to keep them building muscle. It was a lot of hypertrophy training is what they kind of label GVT as. And I ran through a number of cycles of GVT back in the day, and I'm actually doing a hybrid form of it right now. And I will say that shit just laid me out. If anybody's done German volume training the way it's supposed to be done, it will literally lay you on your face. The leg day will crush you. The chest and back day it just sucks. It's just as bad. The only day that I thought was easy was the shoulders and arm day. Personally, that was the only day that I felt like we can get through this. But it was actually really, really good for me, and I was glad I went through that. So if anybody's looking to get their ass kicked, German volume training will kill you. No, it won't kill you, but it will kick your ass. But I kind of just migrated for years within the conventional gym setting, and adapting different things conventionally, and just working on my lifts and that sort of thing. But probably around 2000 and by the way, I started my journey in '97, but around 2004, I got introduced to something that completely blew my mind by a young high school kid at the time. He was a wrestler. His name was Brian Wakefield. And Brian introduced to me sandbag training. And he said, Dan, we were friends, and even though I was older and we'd met through various connections, but he was like, Dan, you got to try this. And I was like, what the hell is sandbag training? And he had this program that was written by another gentleman that would influence me, which was Emmait. Emmait was, I believe, a amateur boxer. I know for a fact he definitely trained boxers, but he had this website presence back in the day, YouTube, and he did have a channel as well. And he did conventional training, but he did a lot of unconventional workouts with a lot of gear that he actually made himself. And his theme, and I've shared this before, was low tech, high effect. So he did a lot of sandbag training and ended up coming up with this like little book that you could buy, and Brian happened to buy it. And I remember going through these workouts just getting smoked because it was like nothing I'd ever done before. It was all a much higher rep scheme. It was done with little to no breaks, which I wasn't used to. In the gym, you took your time, you went to the next workout, made sure you're ready to go, smacked it, walked around, slapped some ass, whatever. This type of workout was, to me, it was like a precursor to what like CrossFit would become, this high intensity workout with no breaks, Tabata, that kind of thing. But this was back in early 2004, so that was very influential. Sorry about the wind, it's picking up here outside. But yeah, Brian, Emmait. Later on, I had everything written down here because I kind of can't remember everything. But from out of that time period, I was also overweight for my build, even though I was, had some, good gains in the gym and this and that. But I got pictures of myself, and I was from back then. Still have one. I'm like, ugh. I was strong, but I didn't look strong. You know what I mean? I definitely was overweight for my size. And so I did some digging, how to, drop some weight, and looking at programs, again, that would get me there. And I happened to stumble across a military fitness book at one of the bookstores in North Hills one time. And it was like to get ready for basic training. And I ended up buying the book, and I'm going through it, and a lot of it just body weight stuff. But I'm like, yeah, but a lot of it I'd never done before. I'd never done high rep push-ups and pull-ups and chin-ups and running and sit-ups to get you ready for basic training. And then I'm looking, and it's like, well, if you're X height, this is what you should weigh, da-da-da. And I looked at this, just looking at the specs, and I'm like, damn, I'm actually overweight, because I was a little over 200. I think it was like 204. And at 5'11", 204, I wasn't a shit brick house, like, you know what I mean? So it was like, yeah, I'm definitely overweight. So I started incorporating body weight training, still doing weight training, body weight training. And as I was doing that and going down that rabbit hole, I ran into another influence, which was Stu Smith. And Stu Smith was a Navy SEAL. He was on a number of programs. He was a consultant for a lot of the armed forces for their fitness programs. And the last time I checked, Stu was still holding court. I believe it's in Virginia. Which I think is where he resides, or still resides. But he was still holding court for free workouts in the park a few days a week that you could go to for free. He'd meet you there, and they, pull up bars, etc., and it'll put you through the shit. And some of that consisted of actually military members, and others were civilians. But it was like a free workout, which was really cool. But Stu has a ton of material out there. He's written numerous books, and again, a lot of it geared towards the armed forces, not only basic training, but if you decide to go into certain pipelines, where you need to be. And that's not just the running and the swimming, or I'm sorry, the running and pull-ups and push-ups. His swimming, he is a obviously avid swimmer, being a Navy SEAL. The swimming component was huge that he had shared, and I would later take and from that when I got into swimming. But yeah, so during that time, Stu Smith. In the later 2000s, 2009, 10, 11, and on, when MMA was going crazy, I'd taken some classes, some Bukti Negara, Pencak Silat, for anybody familiar with that, an Indonesian martial art. Getting into that opened a whole nother door for me as well. So you can start to see like me branching out, right, into different modalities of fitness, not just the gym itself, but now looking at trained military-esque training, if you will, and then going into the MMA, and that was really big. I remember on YouTube there would just be tons of videos of guys doing the wackiest shit, and flipping before flipping tires became the thing, and sledgehammer drills became the thing, and just all kind of fast-paced, powerful movements. Olympic movements thrown in with body weight exercises off to the heavy bag, ground and pound, blah, blah, blah. So that was like really attractive to me. And one of the guys that I ended up following as I was getting into, again, the martial art, and then for 3 years helped coach wrestling, Boss Rutan. And everybody and anybody should know Boss. Boss is the freaking man. But I ended up diving down that rabbit hole and watching his videos, looking at his training programs. I mean, this is the guy that fought in the pancreas before there was MMA. And the dude was a beast, an absolute beast. But I loved his way of conveying the martial arts, the self-defense, and then his training styles for staying in shape. So he was an influence to me at that time. Somewhere around, again, 2012, 2013-ish, stumbled because of the MMA, stumbled upon kettlebells. And kettlebells was something that I had never done before, but picked up my first set of double 20s at Sears department store in Newcastle, and that was 2011, for a fact, 2011. And man, I got hooked on kettlebells. And I started down a whole different, again, modality of fitness, which was kettlebell training. Two guys that influenced me there, was it Steve Cotter, Cotter, and was it Dan John? Dan John? I'm pretty sure it was Dan John. Those guys I followed on YouTube a lot to learn kettlebell technique, and to kind of just learn about the kettlebell. And the kettlebells have been a staple in my wheelhouse now for 15 years, 20 years, I don't know, 15 years, whatever it is, over a decade, and I still have my bells. The kettlebells I found to be a really unique training tool. They are great for endurance, strength endurance for sure. They do have their limitations, and most things do at some point. Kettlebells, though, are great for endurance, strength endurance, and for developing a good lean physique if done correctly. But in terms of power, you kind of got to go. In my opinion, I have to go conventional. I can only do, can't do the 32s anymore, man. Double 32s, double 70s. I could try, but probably just get broke. But the conventional, heavier stuff still I need to do to stay strong. But anywho, Stephen Cotter, Dan John, that was the kettlebell introduction. And then as I was going through again 2011, 12, dropped a bunch of weight, did some vegetarian lifestyle changes for a while. As I got down from 204 a few years ago, I got all the way down, got down to 172. and it was the most ripped I ever was. I started to incorporate the kettlebell work with trail running. I got hooked on trail running and running in general. But trail running was my passion. You know, did some competitions, the monkey races, did a 10K down here at the local park, which was nasty, but it was my best PR. You know, it was under an hour to do 6.2 miles. That was huge for me. But that all the running and the kettlebell training is the only things I focused on in body weight, and it was the leanest I ever was. And like I said, just kind of cut. But I did lose muscle strength, you know, from just all the running and the kettlebell work. And so once I kind of went through that period, if you will, I got back into barbell lifting. And when I did that, it was the barbell club. Joined that for 2 years ish. Ambridge Barbell Club. And a guy who I never met, but was a indirect influence for me, was the gentleman who opened the Barbell Club every day from Aliquippa, PA, Art Montini. This guy, I believe, passed away in his early 90s, but every day at 4 a.m. or just a little after, he would open up the Barbell Club, and almost Monday through Friday, I was the second guy in the morning because I would hit it before I went to work, and I usually got there about 5, a little after 5, and he had just left. And I never got a chance to run into him. This guy still competed at the senior level in a number of barbell lifts, which I thought was just so awesome. And you can Google Art Montini, Montini, from Aliquippa, PA. It was just, I don't know, he was just influential. And during that time, I did get into, again, the conventional training in the gym, and this gym was nasty. The barbell club was dirty as shit. It was below a bar, but it was so raw. Like when you got in there, it was like, we're here to do business. This wasn't, you know, your McGlobo gym. This was, we're here to do fucking business and get down. And granted, there was nobody there, but the aura of walking into a place like that was just, for me, it was so attractive. It was just like honeydew a bee, man. And I thrived in that environment. My heaviest lifts to date at that point, 2015-ish, were done there, man. They were done there. Zercher squat, Jackson lift, my power cleans, my power clean and press. I learned the Continental, which was amazing. The Continental is a hell of an exercise. No one even does that these days. The Continental is, to me, better than deadlift and always will be. And if you can do the Continental to press, fucking beast mode, man. Sorry for my passionate verbiage, but I'm just telling you guys, if you want to build true strength, go look up the Continental. Put that into your arsenal. It's just such a powerful movement. And again, doing those lifts, doing the 5x5, the 1x1 for 5, or 1x5 and 5x5 had me just, it was, my pictures prove it. I mean, it was just the strongest I'd ever been. But I ran that course, and in between that time period as well, and just before it, I dabbled in some endurance competitions. And the guys that influenced me in that was my pen pal from Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, CJ Ong, ONG, and a gentleman from Vermont, Kale. Both of these cats I met on Facebook when I was on Facebook, you know, years and years ago. And CJ and I would stay, you know, pen pals throughout the years, man. And but both of these guys were endurance athletes, and got me, I don't know, we want to say, gave me the withdrawal to go and compete in a sprint triathlon, which I did do. I did 2 of those. Did okay, you know. My swimming sucked, but I never swam until prepping for one, and I think I prepped in about a month's time. But I did do 2 sprint triathlons, and then I took first in a sanctioned aqua athlon, which was awesome. But doing those things, CJ was a bodybuilder He competed as a bodybuilder. He was a power lifter, and he was a triathlon guy. And he still bikes and trains and rides to this day. Kale was an ultra runner or ultra marathon runner, but he also competed in other crazy events. I think one of the craziest things, and I don't even hear this talked about, but the guy did a decathlon. Deca. That's 10 triathlons. And I forget how many hours they had to complete it, but I don't know if he went to Mexico for it or what. This was years ago. But it was like a 24-hour event. I mean, it wasn't like a one and done, you do your triathlon and go home. It was a decathlon. Check that out. But Kale, Kale, Poland, he was the man. You could Google him, probably find him. And he did crazy ass runs in Vermont up mountains and shit. And, run until from sunrise to sunset. And the first one that covers X number of miles wins. It was almost like that you may die type of mentality. You do these crazy races. But both those cats were hugely influential to me when I started to dabble in the smaller, short game of endurance. And then kind of lastly for me, and I'll close it with this because I know this video has been running for a while. It just is what it is. But the last thing was, was when I dabbled into the early beginnings of CrossFit. I never drank the Kool-Aid, the whole cup, but I definitely had some sips, so I'm not going to lie about that. I did find some of what CrossFit brought to the table engaging. Their challenges were probably the thing that caught my eye the most, like Murph, for example. I would do Murph a number of times, and for me it was an ode to my grandfather who served in World War II, both with and without the weighted vest, for example. And then GymJones. GymJones was really big as well. GymJones, what was that, out of Colorado or something like that? It was definitely out west. But GymJones kind of tailored workouts that were CrossFit-esque in nature, but not entirely, for athletic performance. So skiers, snowboarders, there was a whole kind of operator training that went on with GymJones as well. And some of you may or may not know this, but GymJones had also come out with a plan for operators. It was called the Horseman. And I got my hands on that PDF file years ago, and I have a copy as we speak downstairs in the garage. It's about this thick, man, but it's a massive training kind of manual for military, and it's broken down into power, endurance, cardio. It's got all these facets, and the program's already there. But it's called the Horseman. If you can find it, there's a PDF file somewhere out there. If not, reach out to me. Maybe I can get you a copy or something, or show you where to find it. And lastly, the last guys to this day still have an influence on me were the gentlemen from Freak and Fit. So Freak, letter N, and then Fit. That was their YouTube channel. These two guys were out of Jacksonville, Florida. I'm pretty sure, one of them for sure was active duty. I think Turbo J was also somehow in the military as well. But Turbo J and Solista were from CrossFit Jacksonville that would later create the entity 3-2-4. That was their it wasn't a box, but that's what they came from. They came from CrossFit, but then they went beyond CrossFit. They felt like CrossFit had too many limitations and kept everybody in a box. Which is why they left Jacksonville CrossFit and formed their own little brand. And they would actually, sorry for the noise, guys are ripping. They would later go on to write a book called The Road to Liberation, and I've shared that with you guys before. And all their workouts for over the course of a year, almost all of them are all listed. And it's so cool. It's kind of like a Bible where you don't need to start from the beginning of the book to understand the end. You could start at any point and see their progression, see how their minds were forming new ways to get fit faster and to lift heavier, and always found that inspirational as well. And that's kind of where I've left off. Those are my resources. Those are the people that have influenced me to this date, and no one's really come close. I'll give an honorable mention to CJ Fletcher. I command you to grow. He was a hoot. He was a character, but I enjoyed his motivational speeches in the gym. C.J. Fletcher, I don't know, he might be dead now, but he was a hoot. C.J. Fletcher. And every once in a while, Rich Piana. There's some honorable mentions, just in terms of their approach to the gym, the meathead approach to gains and stuff like that. There's always something you can pick up from somebody. That's for sure. But those are everybody that I gravitated towards or that came into my orbit and got my attention. And these days I just pull from that. There aren't too many other people who haven't done anything that these guys I haven't mentioned already have. So those are my influences, and I just wanted to share that with you. And if any of them sound interesting, go and Google it, check it out. Probably be worth your time. All right, later on.